Guys, and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to determine whether a number is a perfect number or not. So I've written a very small pseudocode just to show you the steps that we're going to take. The first thing that we're going to do is ask for the input from the user, and then we are going to determine the input's divisors. As you know, a perfect number is just any given number whose the sum of the divisors is equal to that number. And then we'll find the sum of the divisors. Then we'll compare if the sum is equal to the input. If yes, then it's a perfect number. Else, it's not a perfect number. So let's go on with the code. So the first thing we're going to do is define the variables that we're going to use. So I'm just gonna do int I, and then n will be the number that will be requiring the user to input, and then the sum will just initialize it to 0. So the first thing on our pseudocode is to ask for the input from the user, and we're just going to put a statement like printf and say enter the number. After that, we're going to leave a space, and then we use scanf for the inputs for C language. Yeah, so scanf, yeah, we'll pass in an integer and then just call it n. So n is the one which we're going to be requiring from the user. And then after that, we have to determine the divisors of n. So for that, we're going to use a loop, a for loop actually. You can use a while loop or a do while loop, all those work, but in this tutorial we are using a for loop. So we're just going to say for I is going to start at 1, and the reason why it's starting at 1 is because whenever we divide n by this number by I, if it starts from 0, n might inconvenience us, because any number divided by 0 would definitely give infinity, and we don't want that in our tutorial. So I is less than n and I plus plus. Open the brackets. So we're going to put a condition here. We're just going to say if n, and we're going to use this symbol and say if it's equal to 0, that means if n divides I without leaving any remainder, then automatically that I becomes the divisor of n. So now we're not going to be grouping the divisors. Instead, we're interested in the sum. So we're just going to say sum equals sum plus I. So this line is only determining the sum, and the sum is the one we are interested in. So after we find the sum, we're just going to go beneath here and compare, because our pseudocode says after finding the sum of divisors, we have to compare if the sum is equal to the input. If yes, then automatically a number is a perfect number, else it is not. So we're going to put another if statement here, when we'll say if the sum is equal to n, then we put the code here. Just going to printf and say that number is a perfect number. And we're just going to jump the line. Else, we're just going to say printf and say is not a perfect number. And that's it. So let me just put semicolon there. And that's it. So if we try and run this, sorry. So I'm just gonna open my terminal and try and run and see what I'm talking about. So I'm just gonna do gcc g main.1.c and pass main1.c.execute. And then if that run, then I'm just gonna do ./main1.c.execute. So it requires me to enter the number. So I'm just going to start with the perfect numbers that we know. We see if the code is working. So I'm going to input 6, for instance, and it gives that number. That is just the address of the number, and it's telling us we didn't pass in the number. We forgot to pass in what we're supposed to print here. So I'm just gonna put n there, and also, sorry, just gonna put another n there and save. Go back to the terminal. And try and recompile that, and then we run it, we enter 6, and now it says 6 is a perfect number. If we try and run again that, and we enter, for instance, 4, it's going to say 4 is not a perfect number. We can try another one. 28 is a perfect number. 28 is a perfect number. Wow, that's it. Our program is working correctly. And that's it for this tutorial. See you in the next one.